Puff is innocent. Puff's innocent. At least that's the position that the defense attorneys are taking this early in the game. And it's interesting because we saw an interview with Puff's defense attorney coming out and saying that he's innocent. And he's obviously in a tough spot, right? So he went to apply for bail, wanted to go in front of a judge, request bail. That was denied. They put together a package where they were going to put up $50 million. So Puff had paid like $18 million towards his home in order to pay it off so that he would have the equity and put that up as proof that, hey, I plan on participating in this process. I'm going to come to court. And it was still denied. Ultimately, when you have charges like he's facing, sex trafficking, transportation across state lines for prostitution, a racketeering conspiracy, they're like, nah, we can't let you out, right? So the judge is considering him a danger to society. You could also say it's arguably that he's a flight risk, right? If you're facing decades in prison, up to potentially life, then you might be a flight risk. And this, despite the fact that he turned in his passports, kids turned in their passports, he's trying to sell his jet. So really, they were doing everything that they could to put him in a position to get out of custody. But obviously, that request has been denied. But nonetheless, the defense maintains that he's innocent. And it's difficult, right? When it comes to bail, the judges have to accept as true the positions from the prosecutor. And so, they just roll out the facts of this indictment that we've seen, right? And they had their grand jury testimony where they had over 50 witnesses come through and say what Puff allegedly did. And so they're able to say that as part of their argument for bail. And, both judges at this point have denied that. But over the next couple months, there's going to be a lot of evidence that ends up coming out, right? Or at least turned over to the defense, right? They're going to have hard drives and hard drives of evidence because it's going to be all these witness statements. It's going to be, there's going to be photographs. There's going to be videos, including videos of the freak off. How many, somebody's going to be playing a drinking game, take a shot for every time you hear freak off, right? But, you're going to see videos of these freak offs and you're going to have agency reports, right? So the federal agents who have been doing these investigations, there's going to be a bunch of reports there, and so Puff and his legal team are going to have to go through this and figure out, all right, are we trying to settle this? Or are we going to take this all the way to trial? But if his lawyers are already coming out and saying that he's innocent, then that means that you don't take a deal, right? Because you wouldn't have your client as an innocent man plead guilty to anything. Now that could change, right? After they see the evidence and they say, sorry, Puff, like we don't think that the prosecution is going to have any difficulty proving this case. But I think, obviously he's got experienced lawyers and they wouldn't come out and say that he's innocent if they didn't plan on running with that narrative to the end, right? And so at the end of the day, I mean, it is a question of interpretation, right? None of these federal agents were at these freak offs, presumably. The prosecutors weren't there, so they're taking the information from other people who presumably were there, right? But at the same time, the defense is going to have their witnesses too. So it's difficult to say, we need to see some of this evidence, but it may not be the slam dunk that the prosecution thinks it's going to be, because at the end of the day, some of these people who are going to testify and say that they were forced into participating in these freak offs, or, they were drugged and taken advantage of and things like that. The defense has already said we have our own witnesses too, right? So when one says, oh, I felt like I had to do this, Puff was a dangerous man and he's powerful and he's rich. And so I felt like I had no choice. And then when it comes to cross examination, and it's like, wait, you participated in how many freak offs? 50 freak offs, right? I could see one or two, and then you felt like you needed to escape, but you were in 50 freak offs and you didn't feel like you could call anybody. You couldn't call the police. You couldn't call a family member. You couldn't call a pastor. You kept coming back because you were so intimidated by Puff, right? Because remember, at the end of the day, the freak offs and for all the thousands of bottles of lube and baby oil, this was it's a fun thing, right? It's for entertainment, it's for enjoyment, it's for pleasure, right? And a lot of people obviously got off on these things. And so, extravagant parties. So Puff is going to have his, willing participants be able to come out and probably both through cross-examination and his own rolling out of witnesses be able to say, hey, did you know Susie Q? Yeah, who's Susie Q? Well, she was my friend, right? And did you ever participate in a freak off with Susie Q? Yeah. Did you ever get the sense that she didn't want to be there? No. Did you ever get the sense that she was intimidated into being there? No. Did you ever get the sense that she, you know, wasn't a willing participant? Absolutely not. Susie Q loved the freak off. Susie Q told me she had every freak off circled on the calendar with stars and happy faces. She loved the freak offs, right? Like, this is going to be the type of testimony that you have, because ultimately it sounds like the angle that they're playing is that everybody was a willing participant in this. And at the end of the day, the jurors, the general public, you may not engage in this type of activity, and chances are it's more likely than not that you don't. But what they're saying is that was a lifestyle. And you may not agree with the lifestyle. It may not comport with your religious preferences or anything like that. But at the end of the day, it was a lifestyle. There's nothing illegal about what he was doing. And at the end of the day, he's innocent. So, again, they'll get this evidence and begin forming their defense strategy. But if it goes to trial, it is absolutely going to be an interesting one. I think it'll be on on the spectrum of the magnitude of the OJ trial, another one of those trial the century type deals. And, we'll see how it plays out. But it is unfortunate that Puff's been denied bail. They'll have an opportunity, it's my understanding, to appeal to the circuit court to see if they can get some love there. But, generally speaking, they're going to defer to the prior rulings. And unless there was some sort of abuse of discretion by the judge, which I don't think that's going to be found, Puffs is going to be in custody for the for the long haul pending trial. So let's see how it plays out. What's your stance on it? Is Puff innocent? Do you think he's going to be found guilty? I'm curious. I'm curious to see how it plays out. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.